Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm here talking about the Mercury Retrograde cycle that we have just started. Mercury Retrograde started 29th, 30th, depending on where you live. And we see right now that it's in Aquarius and it's going to go back into Capricorn. So I'm going to talk about that, the shift from Mercury from Aquarius into Capricorn, and this retrograde cycle that's going to last until when is it? February 19th, I think it was. We'll look at that. And so, again, it's a very interesting time to see that. And one of the things is that we also are. This is part of the. I'm also, if you want to make sure to be prepared in 2021, again, I am talking about this. We're about right here in the calendar. And part of this Mercury retrograde going back into Capricorn is going to put this concentration on this sign of Capricorn, where we're going to have all these planets piled up for, all planets except Mars, including the moon, are going to be in Capricorn. But from February 4th to February the 12th, we're going to have every planet except Mars, and then the moon comes in as well in Capricorn. So it's a huge concentration of energy that's shifting right now. And again, this is free. You can go there. You can go to this web page. I just put it up there at 2021vedicastrology.com, 2021vedicastrology.com, and you get this page. And again, as you see, all you need to do is register. It's free. You can either watch the instant replay or you pick a date in the next couple of days, a date and time. And again, the 10 most important shifts. We just had the new moon in January, which started off really 2021, January 12th. That new cycle of hope started. Now we're here at this point. Time to concentrate. And part of it is this Mercury retrograde going back into Capricorn from Aquarius. So again, just click that link and oops, sorry. Weird, weird little thing here. Okay, so let me bring up the chart again here. Had a little glitch. Okay, so as you see, now we're here at this point now, right? We're here with, this is on the 29th. On January 29th, we have the moon, or I'm sorry, we have Mercury up here in Aquarius. And then as we go forward, we're going to see the transits. Mercury on the 30th, Mercury turns retrograde today. As I'm recording this now in San Diego, it's the 30th, about 6 p.m. And again, 31st, 2nd, or I'm sorry, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. You see on the 4th, Mercury goes back into Capricorn, and look, all these planets in Capricorn except for Mars, right? They're all there. Then we have the moon is even going to join for a while. So notice this big shift coming up. Now, I already talked about all those planets in Capricorn, how powerful that is. But again, Mercury retrograde is a time where we reflect on things, where we reflect on especially our communications, how we speak, how we think, the voice in our head. Mercury is really the planet of your of that voice in your head, as much as anything. What's the story that you're telling yourself and that you're telling others, right? Notice how important those voices are and that story is. So that story really connects you with your values and the value that you share. What is the meaning and the purpose of your life, and how do you interpret that? So again, the meaning and the purpose often comes from Jupiter. But the planet before Jupiter is Mercury, which is, what is the story you're telling yourself? What is that story? What is and based on that story, now you derive meaning. Think about it. So again, the planetary order is very important. we derive meaning from things based on how we interpret the information and the data. The data comes first, which is Mercury, and then the meaning comes next, which is Jupiter. And so Mercury is so important because, again, think about just the world that you live in. Just think about, your family, let's say, that you were raised in, right? And people told you a bunch of things. They gave you a bunch of, feedback into, Sam, you're this person, you're that, you're this way, you're that way. And all of that went into your mind and you interpreted it in a certain way. Some of it you agreed with, some of it you liked, some of it you didn't. When you spoke and, gave voice to your values, and when you speak about the things that are important to you, there's feedback that comes back to you. And then you have to filter through that and say, well, I said this, and then other people said that in response. Does that mean that, that I'm right or wrong? Or does it mean that they don't understand me? What does it all mean? Again, Mercury is very much about this communication and being able to interpret and filter through those things. And again, it really clarifies our values, based on what we speak and based on what comes back to us, right? And so right now, especially with all these planets in Capricorn, there's a lot of sort of triggering right now. We could be, quite triggered around our fears, right? And feel, kind of burdened even a little bit with all these planets in Capricorn. And for example, we could, maybe something happens where we're communicating something with people and it gets misinterpreted or something. And then they say something back, which is not what we intended. And they're going to say specific things to us like, you did this, or you're that way, or da 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 da. And we have to now measure that against what did really happen and what our values really are, and whether or not that person and the things they're saying and the values and the interpretation that they're giving us is truthful or not. Not just truthful in a factual sense, but in accordance with our value system. And here's what I mean. Like, for example, one of the main ways that we live our values is that we extend a certain level of graciousness and tolerance to other people. And, Mercury is very much about this. Mercury is how you communicate. Are you someone who is tolerant? Like, if there is a disagreement, do you hang on to grievances and want to argue and fight and defeat them and hurt them and then punish them or cut them out? How do you respond? Again, it's up to you to be intelligent and have discrimination and to be able to hold the possibility that maybe things were just a miscommunication, for example. And again, when Mercury's powerful, we're able to hold these things. We're able to hold paradox and paradoxical views and ideas without turning them into moral dilemmas to fight over and to hurt people over and punish people over. Sometimes it's just a miscommunication. And again, when you're able to hold that highest Mercury ideal, then when there's miscommunication and there's disagreements, you don't get angry. You don't turn it into some big moral judgment. Again, Jupiter comes next, right? But maybe you're able to hold that acumen. You're able to show up in that spirit of forgiveness and understanding that, hey, it was just we just miscommunicated, or and you're able to even like apologize for your part in the miscommunication or whatever it might be. But the other people just simply aren't. They have to make you wrong. They have to like punish you. They have to moralize. They have to lecture. They have to say, oh, you blah, blah, blah. And they have to turn it into something like that. Again, there's only so much tolerance, patience, and discrimination that you need to endure as well, that you need to tolerate. Again, and that doesn't mean that you get mad at them. That means that you can see that. You can see through that. And so what often happens, again, like with every planet, those who have a powerful Mercury, for example, where it's well developed, they're able to see through these things. They're able to notice these things. And they'll see where other people are just kind of being triggered or whatever it might be. Whatever end of the spectrum you're on, again, I'm just describing the parameters. Now is the time when Mercury goes retrograde to really see ourselves in these situations and see how well are we able to be tolerant and be flexible and bring intelligence into miscommunications. What do we do when there's miscommunication? By the way, usually, or if not always, you'll see these things on the same scale. Like, for example, the person or the people who are able to find that common ground and not hang on to things and stay angry and triggered and all that often are also better communicators anyway, because it's all the function of Mercury, which means they're usually less likely to be offensive, or if they are, they'll apologize quickly, or they'll usually learn how to self-regulate pretty well. You'll see that the ones that don't, they're the ones that get triggered. They're also the ones that often don't communicate very well. And I'm being general when I say don't communicate very well. I mean, they'll often communicate perhaps in an aggressive way or in a confusing way, or where it's already where it's easy to miscommunicate, where it's easy to have communication problems. It's easy to have communication problems with the same people who then also hold you accountable or get mad at you or moralize or judge you or get angry at you. They're the same ones that are also hard to communicate with at times. Now, again, this is a spectrum. All of us are like this at times. And even if you're one of the people that are getting triggered and angry at times, it's fine. Astrology teaches us how to address that and recognize that and say, yeah, okay, I need to learn to do this better. This is something that I'm not so great at, where I do tend to turn it into, emotional things where, again, I get triggered and then I get judgmental and then I, again, want to get retribution or punishment or other kinds of things that were just maybe a miscommunication. So wherever we are on this, and we're all on it on some spectrum. Again, I'm not saying that people that do it, quote, better means they're perfect. No, all of us have imperfect communication. None of it is perfect. But so we have to talk about the range. And Mercury retrograde cycles bring this out. They show it to us. And again, they show it to us in a certain way. What we look at with each specific Mercury retrograde cycle is we look at the house and sign that it's in. We look at the dignity of the planets. Again, this is happening in Aquarius and Capricorn, right? And so wherever those houses fall for you, that's going to be a place where you're going to notice, right? If you're Aries person, that's your 10th and 11th houses. If you're Taurus, it's your 9th and 10th houses. So like if it's the Taurus, you would expect maybe that, again, Mercury retrograde is starting in your 9th house, going back to your 10th house. So it could show where certain ways of communicating or miscommunicating or confusion around finding your voice and doing it in the best way is moving from the place of the 9th house, which is maybe you as a teacher, you as a student, into the 10th. From the 10th house to the 9th. From 10th to the 9th. So it's maybe starting in the 10th house, which is your impact and your work and your career, and then going back into the 9th house where you learn and realize how you need to be more aligned with your principles and higher purpose in order to get the most out of your work and impact and career. So that Mercury retrograde cycle for you as a Taurus person will work on that, through that sort of lens, depending on where those houses are. And again, we have Mercury is strong here because it's in the signs that are ruled by Saturn, Aquarius and Capricorn. So, this is another thing to consider. And by the way, just to go back to the 2021 forecast again, this, as we see, one of the things that I talk about a lot, and I didn't include this Mercury retrograde cycle, but I have two other ones. This Mercury retrograde power in April, from the end of April to the middle of July, and this Mercury retrograde at the end of the year are also in these water, these air and earth signs. So this entire year is very good for recalibrating our Mercury nature, because Mercury does best when he goes retrograde in these two places, between the air and the earth signs, because Mercury rules the air and the earth signs. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. So when he goes retrograde in Aquarius, well, that's similar to Gemini. When he goes back into Capricorn, that's similar to Virgo. So the retrograde cycles for 2021 are really quite powerful for unwinding all of these themes and issues that I'm talking about. So I just put that link there again. So just, so you understand that that this cycle is very good for showing and for unwinding this higher quality of Mercury, but it'll be a little bit different for each of the 12 signs. So one of the other important qualities of Mercury retrograde is it's important to listen. Like everything, the planets have a dual nature: the external and the internal. Most of the planets rule two signs, except the sun and moon. Again, Mercury rules Gemini, which is externalized, speaking, a lot of words, and Virgo, which is internal, reflecting, organizing all those details internally. Similarly, when the planets are moving forward, it's very much like external. And so with Mercury, it's more like the Gemini. Most of the time, it's going forward. When it goes retrograde, it's more like the Virgo kind of energy. So Virgo people, or people who have a lot of planets in Virgo, could very well find these Mercury retrograde cycles to be, quite comfortable. Anyone who is ruled by Mercury, particularly if it's strong in your chart as well, like powerful by sign or house or what have you, may also really find Mercury retrograde to be a time to be able to reflect, concentrate, and listen. Because listening is the great skill with Mercury as well. And really listening to what others say and being able to adjust again. But what are we adjusting to? We're adjusting to what someone else says. It's not just what I say, it's what someone says back to me. I don't just get to do all the talking. Well, I do in this situation, but in most situations, I don't. Unfortunately, I also have to listen. And that's what we're adjusting to. We listen, and we listen with skill, or we're trying to really understand the other person. And when we really can empathize and say, okay, I understand why you said that, even if it was angry or this or emotional or didn't make sense or whatever it might have been that you were communicating. Okay, I understand that. And I don't take it personally. I don't hate you for it. I'm not angry at you over it. I understand why that could have happened. Now let's move on, or let's come to a place where we can communicate and not feel the need to demonize the other person or be angry at them or dismiss them or lecture them or punish them or whatever else it might be because of the miscommunication. So again, that skill is often because of the power to be able to listen and not get triggered and not need to be right or all of those things. Again, none of that's Mercury, that I need to be right. Very much Mars energy. Or you let me down because you're supposed to be all that's Jupiter gone haywire. I don't care who it is or what it is. Nobody is some icon of whatever. You were my father, so you were supposed to be blah, blah, blah. Okay, I get it. That's a stage of life. And when we're a child and when we're immature, we have those notions. But eventually we have to grow up and realize, even though someone was my father or this or that, They were still a human being, a flawed human being grappling with life. And yes, they made mistakes. And again, the forgiveness or the understanding of that only benefits you to be able to see that way. That's the truth. And that's how you stay sane. And you, again, stay more lighthearted and flexible and fun and all of those things that we also associate with Mercury. If not, then we're burdened by all of these judgments and this anger and frustration. And this, again, there's also that desire to then punish them for what they did. Saturn, that sort of cruelty. And that doesn't benefit us at all. No matter how much we think it might, it's a very short-term benefit to that kind of misunderstanding. And so Mercury retrograde cycles are times to process this in a better way and move beyond our misunderstandings, miscommunications, and whatnot. So we'll take a little bit of a question here. Christina said, do you think society will be more open considering society's health and discipline for the virus, putting money into social programs? The thing I'll just say, here's where we're sort of, if we look at this sort of collective karma, we're all in this Capricorn energy right now, and we're going to be in it for a while, as you see, right? Mercury going retrograde back into it is, again, he's going to jump back in there for a while, and then the sun breaks out. But this is really showing that, again, we're back in this feeling of being controlled and stressed and worried, and Mercury is trying to bring the component of that is not just triggered and spinning out again on sort of fearful, paranoid kind of explanations. That doesn't mean our eyes aren't open. It doesn't mean we're not looking at things factually and truthfully. And there's a lot to be suspicious of and aware of now in all regards, whether it's with, governments or solutions. Anytime there's this much, especially monetarily, monetary power getting concentrated in the hands of a few. And what we've seen, with response to things like the COVID and the monetary policies and the inequities and all of that, there's a lot of things that I could go into that. I don't want this to be a big political thing, but recognizing, seeing and recognizing these things now, and the consequences of them are going to be big. And I've already said that one of the things that I expect for the next couple years, the next year or so, I said it last year, with Saturn going through Capricorn, and also the outer planet Pluto is also here right now. He just also set up in Capricorn, is a total kind of reworking of our monetary systems. Excuse me. In one way or another, seeing a lot of the systems fail and collapse and have problems. We saw this week that we had the thing that happened with GameStop. If you didn't see this, where it was like a crowdsourced, mob kind of hijacking of the stock market with a bunch of people who overinflated a short sale, short bets of a company called GameStop, and really sabotaged a bunch of hedge fund managers and whatnot. And again, this happened right as Mercury was about to go retrograde. Again, the planets station, they stop before they go retrograde. And so it was, I don't remember the day, Wednesday, I think it was. Wednesday, I believe, that a bunch of people did this. And then the maker of the app, and again, by the way, Mercury is technology and all this stuff. This app maker then that was called Robinhood, had to stop trading on that stock and sent a lot of ripples through. It's like, oh, okay. So it's all right if these hedge fund managers soak the rest of us. But if we join together and figure out how to bring that stock down so we can make money and basically take it from the hedge fund managers, now all of a sudden you're stopping and you're preventing that. So again, this is showing a big flaw in the system. By the way, our monetary system in general, anybody who's been repeating the ridiculous mantra of how strong the economy is because of the stock market are just really drinking the Kool-Aid. And again, I don't want to get into all this stuff, but I'm showing you trends and recent things that have happened. So we could definitely see this reversal or this retrograde Mercury. Again, it started in Aquarius, which is very much the public. Things like the stock market and global financial implications has totally Aquarius-like. Again, going from that back into Capricorn. Capricorn is literally like the hard assets and what's underneath it all, like the actual value of currency and whatnot. And now currencies are there's so much fiat underneath it all. It's not backed up by hard assets. Again, we've also seen Bitcoin really going crazy. All of this fiat, or again, I know Bitcoin's not fiat, it's blockchain, but again, it's all our monetary systems in general, without making it so. Our monetary system in general is such a confusing house of cards it's literally built on the promise that it's still going to be worth what we think it's worth now or something. It's like a crapshoot. So I've already said that this big transit of Capricorn, of Saturn going through Capricorn for the next few years, I said it last year, was going to show a huge restructuring of financial capital worldwide. And so again, I don't want this to get too into all of that, but definitely all of these planets in Capricorn that we're seeing show up here refers to where we're going to be, where, in the next, I say the next few weeks, but I mean, again, look at this. Our next new moon is here. The next new moon is on February 9th. And February 11th, I guess. Yeah, February 11th. And look at that new moon. Yeah, see this new moon here? By the 11th, it's moved out a little bit, but let me just pull it back, get it right. It's at 29. So it's like right here, last degree. It's also Sandy. I'll do a full report on this, but you could see this next new moon. This is like, look at all those planets piled up like that in Capricorn and Aries. So again, frustrations building over, tensions boiling. I'm not going to get into the political stuff, but this is also when we're going to have an impeachment in our Senate. The trial's going to start. So I'll talk about that later. But again, financial, monetary, all of these things are definitely up for grabs right now. And so again, we'll be talking about some of these things going forward, but Mercury retrograde in general, and what I wanted to talk about here, has more to do with really listening and reflecting on your values, what you value, how you communicate that, how you listen, and how much joy you have as a result. Because again, the problems that we get with any planet and the joy that we get from its use is a universal. It's not a judgment. Like when I talk about, if it's powerful, then it's easier for you to understand these things. It's easier to forgive, to not be burdened with those judgments and that anger and that frustration that others might bring toward you. And again, it's also, you can live freely, because people that, let's say, dump all of that on you, you can see through, and you're like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I don't hate you. I'm not mad at you. I see it was just a miscommunication. I'm sorry you're so fired up and you need to make me wrong and you need to punish me. You need to do all this stuff, but I also I don't accept it. I don't accept your punishment. I don't feel guilty. I also don't hate you either. I don't return any of it, and I'm kind of free of it. I'm saying me in a general sense, but so when the planet has that kind of power, when it's powerful, and even if it doesn't in your natal chart, this is what you can aspire to. The philosophy behind it is the same. And I explain it this way because that's what you're trying to do with Mercury. The higher goal of Mercury is not to find all the things that you can hate people for or figure out all the details so you can justify why you're angry about this or that. That's a misuse of Mercury. That means you're stuck with it. You're stuck in it. The power of it is to realize, oh, okay, it was just this thing. Okay, I see they said that, they meant that. We're different people, I understand, and it's liberating. That's why, again, Mercury is a neutral planet. It's neutral. It sees things with neutrality. It's the part of you that's trying to see things with neutrality. Not all charged up and angry or desiring as well. That's another thing. Oh, I love you so much, or I'm this and that. And again, we can kind of lose ourselves in that. In the emotion of that, Mercury is where we can sit back and go, okay, I'm getting a little carried away there. That's fine, but I'm just kind of, I'm just setting myself up to be disappointed because that it's really not that great. It's not the greatest thing ever. It's within a range. And again, so when Mercury's powerful, that's liberating. It's the part of us that wants to just understand why things get so weird and emotional and, again, particularly around other people. And so the real benefit when it goes retrograde like this is to introspect and notice and try to have discrimination and detachment from it. Look at your stories, especially look at the things or the people that you're all worked up about or angry about or upset about. And just ask yourself and consider the possibility, am I maybe misinterpreting that? Is it possible that maybe they're actually okay? Maybe all the stuff I'm telling myself, maybe they didn't mean it that way. Maybe they're not a bad person or whatever. That's just their way and they didn't mean it that way or whatever it might be. Is it possible that I have something to do with it, the way I communicate or whatever it might be? You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you. We don't forgive people for their benefit. We forgive them for our benefit. You'll see people that'll act like, and we all have this happen where someone acts like they're well, I might forgive you one day if it's like, well, I hope for your sake you get there because I'm not mad at you. And I'm not burdened with having to carry around anger at you. Like the forgiveness and the understanding and the tolerance is not for their benefit, it's for yours. Important to understand. We punish ourselves. This is really one of the ways that we punish ourselves, with our own negativity. The planets are all divine forces. They're the knowledge and the wisdom that they hold all of that wisdom that we're trying to embody. The only thing that is punishing is our own ignorance. And Jyotish, the science of light, allows us to shine the light on all of that divine energy and shine the light on our ignorance and how we're interpreting it based on our karma relative to what it truly is. So that's really, in a nutshell, what Jyotish even is. The birth chart and our karma is literally our confused relationship with those divine forces. So we're always trying to unravel the highest consciousness as shown by the pure energy of those planets. And the karma that we're reading in the chart shows how we get it, how our energy is being darkened by certain influences. But that pure potential is always there because that's your nature. Your nature is this joy and levity and fun and lightness. That's your nature. When you get stuck in something, in some opinion or some judgment that somebody did something and because of what they said, again, Mercury is where we make the case. Oh, but there was this and this and this and this and this and this and this. That's why I'm justified in hating you and punishing you and yelling at you and judging you. See, I win. I'm right. This. And again, when you see that kind of thing, and it's like, okay, you win, bye, or some version of that, where it's like, again, acting as though if they forgive you one day, they're doing you a big favor. I mean, of course you would like it. It would be a favor. It would be good for everyone. But it just winds up being sad if you see that kind of thing around you, or that kind of relationship, or if you're in that. So again, I always bring it back to things like this when we talk about this. And someone made a great point here with Shravana. Mantra with Nelda, I think, is that Shravana, listen to what's being said. This is absolutely a great point. And when Mercury is in Shravana, we'll go back and look. Again, this is one of the parts of Capricorn, right in the middle. Shravana means listening. Listening through the heart is literally what Shravana is. It's not just the ears. It's listening with the heart. Listening to the essence of what's happening, not just the words, not getting stuck in the details, but listening with the heart, with compassion and empathy and whatnot. So Mercury will be in Shravana, February 10th. It'll be retrograde. He'll be in Shravana for a big part of it. Yeah, and then from February 10th until March 4th. So from February 10th until March 4th, almost a month, that Mercury is going to be in Shravana Nakshatra. So you watch and see. Great insight can be possible. And I thank Mantra with Nelda for pointing that out. That look at those things and people or situations where you just still feel like, there's something, it's just bothering me, and you're not listening with the heart. Again, listening to what's being communicated is very much Mercury. And Shravana is that part of Capricorn where we really tune into the stillness and silence in the heart. The deity is also Lord Vishnu, who is the avatar of Mercury, or who is the deity associated with Mercury. So that's a great time for healing potential as Mercury is going through Shravana, and to help you heal with compassion and forgive and heal. It's funny because I've had the experience of having both parents die within a year of each other. It's not just that they die, but they both kind of just drop dead one day, or at least from my point of view. My father had been dying and I didn't know, and I found out about it like the day before he died. He didn't let me know, didn't let us know. So I never got to, quote, say goodbye. My mom was very similar. She just suddenly collapsed and never regained consciousness again. So I never got that last opportunity to forgive them or whatever it might be. But I say this because, by the way, I didn't need to, because I wasn't angry. That there wasn't anything like that was going on. But it's remarkable how, when you are faced with that, how the first thing you get to, when you think you might never get to talk to somebody again, especially if you've had some kind of thing with there's been a complicated relationship, as it is with all parents, and you don't think and you're not sure if you'll ever get to talk to them again, your mind goes right to that point, that moment where you're like, how is things being left? And you never forget it. And one of the ways that it did really change me is not taking for granted that people are going to be around forever. Until you have the experience that someone where you have such charge with, until you have the experience that, you know what, I had no idea, but I'll never speak to that person again now. Once you have that experience, it changes you. You try to be careful and make sure that people that are important to you, even if you've had problems and all of that stuff, which many of them, the closest relationships we do, engage with each other in very dynamic and stressful ways. But you try to make sure that those relationships are left at least in a place where they know you care about them and whatnot. You start to be more careful with them. And so, because you might not get that chance again. You might not think it's important, but you never know when someone's going to drop dead one day. Or you're not speaking to someone and you don't know that maybe to them they're suffering and the next and they're not telling you that they might die and they haven't told you. You don't get it. You don't always get another chance. I didn't with either one of my parents. And I had a complicated relationship with both of them. And at first, it's very unsettling. And your mind goes there instantly. Anybody who's had a parent die, especially suddenly, it's instant. As soon as you find out you might not ever get another chance, you wake up really quick and go, what do I need to say? Do I need to? It'll nag you. And I would have hated, particularly with my mother, it was very sudden. I would have hated if when I found out that she had collapsed and might not ever regain consciousness again, which she didn't, it would have been really painful if I hadn't just talked to her a few days earlier and we had a big conversation and I said all of that stuff. Again, I'd said it before, but for some reason I said it a lot. It was right before Mother's Day. And I told her how much I loved her. And even though I don't come and visit as much, I hope you know it's not because of you. I've just always been this way, and I've always felt like you understood that, and I always felt like we didn't need to say these things so much, but just in case you need me to say it, I'm saying it. And I literally said that to her 2 days before she lost consciousness and never came back. Again, even if I wouldn't have said that, I wouldn't have felt incomplete because there was nothing going on. There was no anger or anything. There was nothing happening there. But knowing that I had just said all of that was really important. You don't always get another chance. You just never know. And you will regret it, I promise you. If there's someone who you really love them, but there's been difficulty and stuff and that person might just drop dead. And your anger and resentment and all that, that's going to be what you have to live with. Because you left it that way, especially if they didn't. And if they were open. And it was you hanging on to something, you don't always get the chance. So these are important things. These cycles are real. And by the way, retrograde cycles, particularly all this Capricorn energy, this is some intense stuff right now. And again, I'm not saying people are going to die, but look at how many important people have just died. Look at the big transitions that have just happened. We had some major icons recently dying. Hank Aaron, who was a great not just a great baseball player, but an icon of civil rights, a transcendent, not just sports figure, but cultural figure. Larry King, again, a transcendent broadcaster. We see these kind of deaths come at moments. This is an intense time right now. Look at this chart. I've not softballed any of the stuff that's going on. People who have a lot of planets in these areas, there's a lot of stuff that could be happening. And you don't know how long people are just going to hang on or whatever might happen. You don't know. When you get this much energy concentrated in a few places, things shift. So these are intense times. They're great times of transformation and great times of really tuning in to that silence and stillness, particularly with all those planets in Capricorn. These are the things that we need to do. But this Mercury retrograde cycle, again, going back into that house with all this Saturn energy, this is really, again, these are the kinds, this is what Mercury is about. And it's the Mercury part that will nag you when these things happen. And, with both of my parents, my father's was actually, both of them were hard because anytime your parent dies, and they were both sudden. My father's, it was sad because he had been suffering with cancer for months and months and months. Maybe, I think it was even close to a year. I don't know, because we weren't told. I wasn't told. And then when I was told, it was like he was going to die any moment. In fact, I wasn't even told. It was my sister was told, and then she told me. And it's very, your mind, you're just like, you go right to that place where you immediately think, what's there? What haven't I said? What could I have said? And it was very hard with him because we hadn't spoken in quite a while. In fact, it had been years. And it wasn't because there was anger. Not on my part. Or I don't know on his part either, but there was nothing to really say at some point. And again, and not because there was anger, it was just like the relationship was just at a point where, anyway, without going into all that, there wasn't that kind of thing. In the light of that situation, though, I could have very easily been burdened with a lot of regret. I wasn't, or that the act itself was maybe selfish. And in some ways it seemed that way, particularly to other family members, that maybe angry that he didn't let us know and give us the chance to repair. This is the first instinct, was like almost angry, like, why would you go out like that and not give me the chance to make it better? Again, right? Like your mind goes to a selfish place. You're grappling with, well, if I would have known, I would have said something, and how was things left? And now am I going to be burdened with this guilt or whatever it might be? At first, it's just kind of shocking. And I had to sit with that a bit. And then I realized that wasn't it. I know my father. I know him well. I'm getting a little choked up. It's funny. And because I know him beyond any triggering, I knew him as a friend. Both my parents, actually, at some point. They were friends. I knew him as a friend. And I know what it was. It wasn't that. It was a noble gesture. Because he didn't want us to see him that way. He didn't want... The thing that made me sad is that I wasn't able to go there and hold his hand and tell him I loved him and forgive him or whatever else it might be, because there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on. The part that made me mad or sad was that I didn't get to do that, but that's what he wanted. He wanted it that way. And I know inside that he knows that there was no hatred in it. There was no punishment. There was none of that crap that I might hang on to. Again, by the way, I have a pretty strong Mercury, so I could see, it took me a while. It didn't take that long. But I'm like, no, wait a minute. Your father, Dad didn't want you to see him like that. And that's congruent with his nature. He didn't want me and my sister to see him like that. So it was a noble gesture. I know it was. And as soon as I got that, I actually got a profound respect. As much as he would have probably, I'm sure he would have loved to see his kids before he passed. I know him well enough to know that he would not have wanted to burden us. I know that's what it was. And that's heroic. I wish, however, for me, it wouldn't have been a burden. And this was always one of the things with my father. This was his nature. One of the tragic, beautiful parts of the whole thing was that whole, humility, humiliation, frustration. I'm not worthy, so blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. It wouldn't have been a burden. Or maybe there was even also fear that he would have perhaps let us know, and we didn't, and we wouldn't have wanted to go, or something like that. But that's preposterous. So what it wound up doing underneath it all was also just underscoring the whole relationship. It kind of like summed it up. And when someone dies, whatever's going on, it's going to sum things up for you. And it kind of summed up the whole thing. Because I know my father well enough as well to know that he always had that, that insecurity and that unworthiness and that kind of thing. And again, feeling like maybe he would have let us know and we would have not come because we're angry at him or something, and that would have hurt even more. So it's better to just not take a chance. It's better to just not say anything and then to take a chance and have us not go. But again, it's absurd. An absurd idea. But that's a lot of what it was with my father. For 30 years of 50 or 40 years of saying, Dad, I love you. It's okay. I get it. I understand what happened. Forget it. So again, but the point is that there will come, is think about what you've communicated. Think about especially anything or any situations where it's possible to reach out and communicate and let go of some charge, because these are heavy times and people passing and transitioning now is a lot. All this energy concentrated like this in Capricorn and Aries, these two difficult signs, shows that potential. So, all right, folks. Well, went a little further than I'd thought today, but anyway, I hope this was helpful. This Mercury retrograde cycle coming up, and we'll be in touch.